So while I am introducing Amy, I would like for the other panelists to come to the front. Amy Brandenstein is the Community Affairs Representative of Corporate Affairs for Chevron. She serves on the board of directors of Excel by 5, Pascagoula River Audubon Center, the Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College Foundation, a number of others. She's also past president of the Pascagoula Rotary Club, Jackson County Chamber, and United Way, and has been named one of the South Mississippi's top 10 business leaders under 40, along with top 10 community leaders in 2018 by the Journal of South Mississippi Business. So, Amy, we're delighted to have you here today. We're also very appreciative of the support of Chevron. I give you Amy.
Morning, everyone. I'd like our panelists to come up on the stage and have a seat. I know we have one of our panelists will be coming in shortly. Senator Bryce Wiggins is in the midst of a major vote right now, and that is the most important role for him to be in. So he'll be joining us shortly, and we'll save his questions to last. But I'm honored and humbled to be with the group on the stage. As I mentioned, Senator Bryce Wiggins, he covers District 62. He is also an attorney, I guess we'll say on the side, or at least during this time when he's in session. We also have joining us Mayor Toby Barker. He is the mayor for the city of Hattiesburg. His former job was in the legislature, as many of you know, and we're going to be talking a bit more about that. Honored to have you. One of my dear friends from many, many years ago, Ms. Nadine Coleman, the founding director of the Coleman Family Center in Petal, very involved in Excel by 5. We're so happy to have her also, along with Jerome Brown. He's executive vice president of the First Bank. And so they're all going to provide a variety of different perspectives, and our focus is talking about the collaboratives. And I'm going to kind of do this in a different way. I do want to share just for a minute a little bit about Excel by 5. If you don't know, and hopefully you do know, that Excel by 5 is an innovative early childhood community certification process, obviously focusing on a community's youngest children birth through 5. Currently there are 40 certified, many are recertified communities. We do have just a couple that are candidate communities that are working towards that certification, and they're sprinkled all over the state. Just last year, there were over 35,000 direct beneficiaries of the Excel by 5. So very proud of the accomplishments over the last number of years, but really honored to introduce, and I don't know where she is, but yep, Daisy Carter. I would like to introduce her to the crowd. She is Excel by 5's new executive director. She has been at it for about 2.5 weeks, so kudos to her. And we're really looking forward to the next steps and how Excel by 5 will evolve with her leadership. And we have a good number of new board members, so we're excited about the potential of Excel by 5. The last thing that I'll just mention, obviously my full-time job is with Chevron, but early childhood is really a core at what we do. It's a core focus area because it's workforce development, it's economic development. As Dr. Evers was saying, and it brought me back to, gosh, so many years ago, and when I saw Kathy Grace, we were talking about when we were driving around after Hurricane Katrina, trying to identify what child care centers were still even in existence, because it is a workforce development issue. If we don't have our workers at the refinery making the different products that we produce, well then we can't do anything. And so that was one thing that Chevron committed to after Hurricane Katrina, was getting our child care centers back in action, helping rebuild whatever needed to happen. And I know we were grateful to partner with Save the Children and help with Pass Christiane's facility. So honored to have that as one of our core focus areas, because if they're not ready by the time they walk in their kindergarten doors, then it's really hard to catch them up. And I know everyone in this room is well aware of that. So as I mentioned, we'll be talking about the collaboratives, and the folks on the stage have a lot of experience within this. So I'm first going to start with Mayor Barker. And obviously, it's interesting kind of the hats that he has had over the years. So he helped, obviously, Bryce form the legislation that went into effect in 2013. And now he actually is the mayor of a community that is a collaborative. So talk a little bit more about that.
So I became interested in early childhood education. My first year in the legislature, I was the youngest member, newest member of the minority party. So you knew where my place on the totem pole was. Had a lot of time on my hands. And I remember hearing one Saturday, This American Life, there was an interview with Jeffrey Canada, who was the former director of the Harlem Children's Zone. And he went into how important it was for early learning. And I remember we had a bill, I think 2008, 2009, that allowed school districts to do their own pre-K if they wanted to use their Title I money, but there was never any state investment. And of course, Senator Wiggins and I worked on the Early Learning Collaborative Act of 2013. And I remember how close our chairman thought that vote was going to be, that because there was a tax credit involved in it, it was a 3/5 vote. So you had to have in the House at least 74, 75 votes, and it really wasn't close at all when we got to it. I mean, because we drilled down, we answered the questions, we whipped the votes. We had all of our early learning providers. So many of you are in here who really got on the same page, which I know is not always the case, but and really helped push that along. And I was thinking, this is going to be so great for my city because we have these early learning dollars. And it was not that much at first. I think it was $3 million was the first appropriation, which is not really enough to do hardly anything. But I was excited because I'm like, Hattiesburg for sure is going to get one of these. Hattiesburg they applied, but they left out half the application. And so they didn't get one that year, and I was a little peeved about it. And then they expanded the funding a couple years later, and then Hattiesburg didn't even apply. And so when I became mayor and the legislature increased the funding, I think in the 2018 session, I believe, and there was going to be a little bit more room left for the money to go into the program. Got with our superintendent, who was new superintendent, Dr. Robert Williams, and said, we are absolutely going after this money. And we were funded in late 2018, and at the time, we were the largest collaborative in the state. And getting our Head Start, getting 4 private providers, getting our school district on board. And I can't tell you the difference. Actually, I can tell you the difference because I posted about it on my Facebook this week. Hattiesburg has been in a challenging situation with its public schools for some time, and still in some ways is. But just when the kindergarten readiness scores came out in November, and that was part of the legislation as well, Hattiesburg, which is a low-performing district if you listen to the rankings that were taken like in I think the most recent rankings were reported in fall of 2019. We haven't tested since then because of COVID. But Hattiesburg, low-performing district, but number 17 in the state in overall kindergarten readiness, reported last November. Out of 130 school districts, number 17 in the state. And I'll tell you also that Woodley Elementary, which is one of our neighborhood schools, number 13 in the entire state, scored higher than any of our suburban counterparts on the Lamar County side, which, again, Lamar County is a top 10 school district, but when an inner city school in Hattiesburg is scoring higher on kindergarten readiness scores than a suburban counterpart, something's working. And I believe it's having that early learning collaborative and have that vertical integration between the pre-K and the kindergarten, which then sets you up for success going into third grade reading gate. I hope this is a model as we go forward and putting other interventions in. But we've seen it, all 5 of our elementary schools scored above the state average in kindergarten readiness in November. And we're thrilled about what this is going to do for us, not only in how our elementary schools are going to rank, but hopefully going into those critical middle school, junior high years as well. The other thing that we've really kind of done well in recent years, and I hope he talks about it, is our private sector has jumped on board with the tax credit. And I know that's been an issue. We were really excited about the funding that came from the state, but what a lot of folks missed out on was the private sector opportunity. And Jerome Brown, who is not only the vice president of the First National Banking Association, but also he's a big leader on our school district foundation board. And he, along with the Area Development Partnership, which is our Chamber of Commerce, really started pushing this to area businesses. And we raised several $100,000 with the tax credit to further enhance the funding that we have. And I think our challenge as a local community is, how do we scale up now? How do we take this, like Nadine has done in Petal, how do we take this where early learning is a community value that starts well before age 4 year? I have 2 small children. My daughter will start at Woodley in August in kindergarten. My son is 3 years old. And how do we make sure that every child in our community has access to quality early learning from the very earliest ages? And I think the Collaborative Act, I think us getting one as a community starts to develop that community value. And that's what I'm most excited about, is seeing this state thing that we worked on so hard is very personal to me now, because it's in our own community, and I'm seeing how it can change lives. And so been a very rewarding experience.
Excellent. You provided a great segue, because that's exactly where I was going next. Jerome, talk a little bit about your experience from the business sector, how it has benefited not only the bank, but the community as a whole.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Toby almost stole all my thunder, but let me just give you my perspective on what happened. He mentioned the Hasbro Public School District Foundation. I've served as the president since probably 2017 of our local foundation, and it was formed after Hurricane Katrina to ensure the things that the district couldn't pay for, the foundation would. And so we've been at the center of that for a number of years. And when the Area Development Partnership called me at my office, they called me from my hat as the president of the foundation. And so I'm having a conversation with Callison Richardson, and I think Callison was going to try to make it. Is she here? Maybe she hadn't made it as yet. But she's telling me about this early learning collaborative and the monies that were available. And in my job at the First, I ensure community regulations with the Federal Reserve, and then also the Mississippi Banking Commission as part of my responsibilities. So I'm hearing what she's telling me, and I said to her, I mean, as plain as I can say and remember now, I said, it can't be that easy. I said, it can't be that easy. And so she said, I promise you, it is. And this was mid-year, around July, at the time we were having this conversation in 2019, I believe. And as I'm hearing more about it and did a little research on my own, called the state, had conversations with the individuals there, took it to our management team at the bank, and really just said, hey guys, we're writing the Mississippi Department of Revenue a check every year, as our tax liability at the bank is about $800,000 a year. We're writing this check every year to the Mississippi Department of Revenue for taxes, right? And I say, there's a way we can give this for early education and we get the tax benefit. And talking to my CEO, Hoppy Cole, and Hoppy says, so you telling me that we write a check to the early learning collaboratives instead of the state? He said, it's got to be something else to it. So he says the same thing. I said, no, Hoppy, I'm telling you, that's exactly what will happen. I called the mayor, we talked about it, called some other folk, and guess what? We decided to do it. We decided to take the leap. We end up, again, my affiliation with Hattiesburg, and this is a South Mississippi panel here. My affiliation with Hattiesburg, We're the depositor for the school district, and we really wanted to make an impact. So out of that initial 800 that we had there, we gave Hattiesburg 350,000, which was thank you, which was the largest, as the mayor mentioned, at the time. We've since given, as a financial institution, 1.4 million to roughly about 8 collaboratives that's in our footprint on where we operate. And so thank you. I don't think we've missed one that's in our areas where we operate, and if you have one, we would love to talk to you. Lauren Wilson on our team is waving there, and she kind of heads up the program. And so, listen, I'm gonna say this. You asked me a question. It's a no-brainer. How has it impacted us? I tell you this. We say this all the time at the bank: as so goes the community, so goes the bank. Then let me tell you what that means. So there's going to be a day and time where we need deposit customers, we need loan customers to make the bank grow. That's what we do. We make loans every day. That's what grows the bank. Deposits are really a liability. We really don't make money on deposits. Some of y'all may not understand that, but we really don't. But if we're able to make a loan and we have this educated workforce, and we make these investments into early education to grow individuals to have some of the like approaches to education, then we level that playing field, and then that makes the bank and the community go. And so we're excited about what it's doing in early education. As the mayor mentioned, he did release those figures, and we saw that about Woolley, and we knew immediately our dollars were making an impact. And so as well as for Nadine, we give Petal 100,000 too, so not to leave them out. But several communities in here that we give those funds to, and as I mentioned, about 1.4 million over the last 2 years in this cycle.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your commitment. Hopefully it will kind of spark some other businesses and companies to really look at what you did, the background work, and how good it really is. Nadine, talk a little bit about the success that she showed me a map a few minutes ago of kind of the progression over the years within Petal. Talk a little bit about not only the impact that the collaborative has had in Petal, but from the funding standpoint, I was absolutely floored to see how y'all have really gathered with the business community to make it a reality, to commit to this.
Thank you, Amy. I'll just continue with the tax credit money since we're on that topic. Petal was Mississippi's first Excel by 5 community, and we were also in the first group to receive one of the collaborative grants. And as Jerome indicated, when he heard about the tax credit money, there was a little bit of hesitation on the part of most people because they were going, this is too good to be true. You mean I can just send my state tax money to the Petal School District for the early childhood work instead of to the state? And so being the first year, it was interesting. So we immediately, though, began to look at that. And so what we did was we had meetings with a lot of the groups in town about this, your Rotary, your chamber members, and so forth. But when I did that, I took with me my accountant, and I invited Senator Wiggins to come to Petal to talk about this, to make sure that people really believed that it was true, that it wasn't too good to be true.
It was true.
It was true. And it was so, that to me, so if you're looking at trying to get this going in your collaborative community, I'd suggest taking an accountant with you, someone who can say, this is legitimate. So that was really how we began. The first year, in 2014, when Petal received some tax credit funds, we received $110,000, and we were so thrilled. We thought we had hit the jackpot, and it was. It was such a boost. This was money for early childhood that we had never had before. At this point in the game, since 2014, the community of Petal, which is a very, very small community in Mississippi, for those of you who don't know about Petal, we have now received $4,762,000 in tax credit funds. And we, obviously, it's a dream come true that there would be this kind of funding to support early childhood in our state. So we're absolutely delighted about that. And it's used to do some absolutely wonderful things for our preschool children and their families. The other thing that I wanted to mention that I think Amy alluded to was the fact that Petal is also, the Petal Excel by 5 is a line item on the City of Petal's budget. Now listen to that. The City of Petal gives funds to support early childhood in our community. Now this began right after we became the first certified early childhood community, Excel by 5 community. It also happened right after Katrina. That was during the time when we were working toward our certification. So needless to say, that presented many challenges. But on the other hand, I think having gone through Katrina made us, as a community, pull together like we really never had before. And I think the community as a whole was so delighted that something good was happening in our community that they really rallied around our Excel by 5 certification. At that point, again, I went to the Board of Aldermen meeting, and this time I invited with me Steve Renfro, who was with Chevron, to talk about supporting Excel by 5, because I wanted our Board of Aldermen and our community to know why Chevron had an interest in this before we asked them to also support us. So since that time, since 2008, our community has given Excel by 5 funding every year and has continued to do that. And I mean, that's almost unheard of in our state. And the other thing that's almost unheard of is that it's transcended three administrations. So 3 new mayors, and many Board of Aldermen. So with that, the City of Petal has given us over $300,000, again, to strictly support early childhood in our community.
Fabulous. That's astounding to really think about those numbers and the commitment that the community really has to its youngest citizens. I'm going to let Bryce kind of finish it up. Bryce, give us kind of the latest and greatest information on the legislation that's currently in the works, and kind of your feedback and your outlook. I know many states are looking at Mississippi. Talk a little bit about, I know we had a conversation last night about really Mississippi is making some significant progress in what others are saying.
Yeah, thank you. And first, please forgive me, but I had to make a vote over at the state capitol, so that's what you sent me here to do. And sorry I didn't hear the earlier, but let me say this. We wouldn't be here without Mayor Toby Barker and what he did in the Mississippi House of Representatives when we were working on the Collaborative Act. And I appreciate him and his leadership that he showed I'm not sure what all you talked about the bill, but it was good, and I appreciate that. It's amazing what we can do together, Toby. So where the legislatures, I think the biggest thing is, and we started with $3 million. And let me say this, at the legislature, people understandably come wanting money, okay? I'll give you, for instance, this year, ARPA funds, we said we have 1.7 billion, and the request came in, and the request totaled 7 billion, okay? That's what goes on in the legislature. So we started with 3 million, and Toby was able to find that 3 million, and so we started that with the first couple years, and now it is up to 16 million in the state, and that's fabulous. Yes, clap if you would like to. And I'm not sure what the factor is, but that's 16 million from the legislature, and then remember that's a matching of the tax credit money, and so you're basically essentially doubling that as far as I know, and it's only getting more. And to this session, Chairman Dennis DeBar, Education Chairman, stood at the podium, and I asked him a question, and he said, yes, we're increasing the funding again for early learning. Then the best, probably a game changer has been the lottery that we passed. And what happened in the lottery was, that was the 2018 special session. And because of the traction that we built and the success, you had the legislature paying attention. And when that special session went on, that was where we did the roads and bridges money, but that was the lottery. And what we said was the 80 million, the first 80 million would go to roads and bridges. And it was just kind of a, hey, we thought that would be the top out. We put in there that money above that will go to early education. So the lottery is funding early education, and nobody in the legislature thinks it's going to go ever get below the 80 million. It'll stay where it's at. So we have that funding source. And then to your point, Amy, about what people are saying, when was the last time anybody or the national press said Mississippi is leading the nation in education? I can't remember. Well, they're saying that about our early education program. I literally have been asked to go present to other states. Just this past summer, I spoke on a Zoom call with, I think it was legislators and advocates in Idaho. I went to Virginia. This was right after we got it passed. Went to Virginia and spoke with the legislature there. I was asked, I think it was Iowa that we did that, because people are seeing what we did. And honestly, let's be real, they go, if you can do it in Mississippi, man, we can do that. So the nation is looking at us about what we did. But let me say this, if the success wasn't there, then they wouldn't be looking at us. And what we did, and I think maybe Toby mentioned this, what was smart was we had a gradual increase, and we had accountability measures put into the legislation, and we had the national benchmarks of early education put into the legislation. And from the legislature's standpoint, that creates credibility, and that creates data, and that creates things that we can look at going forward. And then just to finish up, I would say, there's an old saying that it's amazing what you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. And honestly, when we first came in, I think Toby saw this, many people they cared about who got the credit in early education. I think what you've been seeing is people don't care who gets the credit. It's about the children, and in this case, the collaborative. And it's not just one person, it's everybody most likely in this room and everybody at this panel. So,
Thank you, Bryce. And Toby, I think you wanted to add on.
Just one thing. I think there's a lesson here for whether it's in education or healthcare. Oftentimes, folks who are, pro-education, pro-healthcare, have some really high goals that may not work with current political realities. Everyone wants to come in and say, we need to fully fund MAEP, you need to expand Medicaid. Okay, we all know that, but that's not going to happen right now. So I think the Early Learning Collaborative Act is an illustration of go after goals that are achievable. Saying that you need $200 million to fully fund MAEP is something, but saying, hey, can you just give us $5 more million for early learning? That's a much more achievable goal, and it makes a real difference. One of my favorite movies is Moneyball, where you put in a certain amount, you're going to expect a certain result. Early childhood education is that thing. If you want to make a real difference and bend the curve, go after some achievable things, and I think increasing the money for pre-K should be the #1 goal every legislative session for whoever is pro-education.
Well said, well said.
And I will cheer 100% to what Toby said, you have to have reasonable goals if you want the legislature to be involved. And I think that was the beauty of that legislation, because believe me, there were a lot of people that said, well, I want this, and let's just take the two parties. Democrats wanted one thing, Republicans thought something else, but we were able to say, look, here's what is achievable within the confines of where we are politically in the legislature. And once you got that, then you could take it off from there. So I agree with Toby on that 100%.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Bryce, Jerome, Nadine, Mayor Barker. We appreciate your leadership and what you are doing in our state, and I can't wait to see in a few years the impact that all of you will be having. So thank you.
So this is super exciting for us, and I want to thank Linda for pulling all this together. And especially this part. This part is a section that we've never had the opportunity to do before, and we should have a long time ago. But work gets in the way, and fires burn hot, right? So I wanted to talk about the tax credit a little bit more. I just want you to recognize that the collaboratives, they do all the footwork on the ground in their communities to try to gather this information and be able to share the news about the collaborative tax credit and be able to gain those tax credit dollars. They're talking to their communities, they're talking to their chambers, so it's super exciting that they are able to be out in their community and tell their community about their programs and the good work that they're doing. The first year we collected the collaboratives collected tax credit funding, we had a total of $277,000 through the whole entire state for all the collaboratives. The highest we ever received, and there's a chart, the highest we ever received was in 2020, which is kind of surprising, but in 2020, during the pandemic, we received $5.6 million in the state. That's those dollars that went directly to the collaboratives. Those collaboratives can use that money to be able to use it on other things that the state funding can't pay for. And so that gives them a little leverage. It helps pay for field trips and assistant teacher, or it could help pay for assistant teachers, but it can help pay for substitutes. And one collaborative created additional classrooms. This past year, they collected $3.9 million. So in the legislation, it says that we can collect as much as the allocation. So as long as our allocation, we can collect 16 million, at least 16 million this year. So you can see that we're still working towards getting there and to that total. So at this time, I would like for all the donors to take a stand. If you wrote a check or gave money to your collaborative, if you would take a second and stand up for me. It could have been $1. So you'll be able to see on the screen here, the screens outside, in the hallway, a running list of the donor names. Isn't that amazing? That all of these people believe in our collaboratives and they believe in investing in it, in early childhood in the state. So those that are here that did donate, let's see, Bailey Shelton over there. She has a certificate for you to take back home, and I hope you proudly present it on your wall at your business or at your home, and tell everybody about it so that you can be able to get the interest that you can gain from the others in your community. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of the collaboratives' hard work, all of the teachers' hard work, because the teachers are these guys who, they're making the difference. So thank you.
Okay, you've been such an attentive audience this morning, and we do want to give you a break, but we want it to be a short break so we can come back and remain as close to on schedule. So break for about 10 minutes, and you should be hearing a bell to come back here. So thank you so much.